So I was asked the question, and it kind of stuck with me. What hurts my feeling? Now, I joke that I've only had one feeling, so yeah, we'll keep it singular. But if I'm being dead serious, that there's one thing that actually gets to me. That one thing, and that's poor leadership. That- And because poor leadership doesn't just hurt results, it damages people. It makes good people question themselves. It makes motivated people stop trying. And it makes talented people want to quit places they once cared about. That's what actually hurts my feeling. And the scary part is most of the damage happens silently, it happens quietly. Like while the leaders think everything is fine. So tonight, this isn't about attacking leaders. It's about calling out the damage bad leaders cause and why ignoring it makes it worse. And so, a quick question before we move on: that if you've ever worked for a bad leader, type me in the comments. And you see, that's exactly why this conversation matters. And so, first thing that I wanted to point out and talk about is the consequences of bad leadership, okay? The consequences of bad leadership. And so when I say that one of the first things that you'll see is that effort stops mattering. And so one that you'll see is most bad leaders, they don't enforce a standard that they have. And this is where high performance performers they carry the weight. They carry the weight of that organization, that because they realize that if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. And so it's very important to know that the first thing that you see under the consequences is that effort stops. And then you see people stop trying on purpose. So as they're going through, as they're working with under a bad leader, you'll see people stop trying and they just really stop caring. And so be honest, if you're still giving your best, if you're under a bad leader or a good leader, I mean, if you're still giving your best or are doing just enough to survive, push one in the comments if you're still pushing, and two, if you've pulled back. So one, you're still pushing at your job, or two, you've pulled back and you don't care as much anymore. The second thing that we see under the consequences of bad leadership is learned helplessness. And what do I mean by learned helplessness? I mean they stop thinking on their own. You stop seeing people, they go to that leader for everything. If you can't make any decision on your own, they you're under a bad leader and you probably don't realize it. Other things that you'll see under this learned helplessness where initiative feels risky. Okay. They trying to go above and beyond. Feels like you're taking a chance that just isn't worth it. Okay. Yeah. I like that. When someone rejects my business and somehow still expects me to do business with them. Well, I also work with myself. Yes. And so the other thing that you see under this learned helplessness is waiting becomes the norm. So you start trying, you're doing work and you're getting it going, and they're just like, we'll wait. We'll keep pushing it off. We keep waiting to make these things happen. And so bad leaders don't fail to develop people. They train them to stop thinking. I'll say that again. Bad leaders don't fail to develop people. They train them to stop thinking. And so if you've ever thought, why even speak up? Go ahead and drop fact in the comment. The third point, under the consequences of bad leadership. So the first is that effort stops mattering. Learned helplessness. Point number three, identity damages. Okay. And this is one where I think is you really start to see it. And it's kind of, and I put it in there in that third one, that because your confidence starts eroding, that your confidence as an employee, as a person, it starts to erode, that because you're not sure if what you're doing is right. You're not sure like what to really do because you're not thinking where you're working. And so when you look also under there, and then you start assuming that you're the problem. You know, people start to assume that hey, if I'm somewhere where there's bad leadership, they I start to assume that I am the problem. And that just isn't the case. Oftentimes, it's because you've been taught this helplessness and you've also been told that your effort doesn't matter. And so you stop trying. And it's at this point in identity damage that talented people leave either A, they leave leadership altogether because they were never taught how to do it, or B, they just leave the organization altogether. That very important though that we know that in the consequences of bad leadership, that you see effort stops, learned helplessness, and identity damage. And so if this has happened to you and it took you time to recover, go ahead and share this live. Go ahead, press share. They send it out to somebody who needs to hear it. Share it to your story. That'll help other people. They start to realize what are those consequences of bad leadership. So we talked about what are the consequences. So let's talk about point number two. What does bad leadership actually look like? Okay. And so you'll often see avoidance that disguised as kindness. Avoidance disguised as kindness. And so what do I mean? Hey, I saw that something was going on with Sarah. Like, Mr. or Mrs. Boss Man, can you go talk to Sarah? And you're like, oh yeah, I'll go do that in a second. And they may go talk to Sarah, but Sarah, the conversation with Sarah goes more like, oh hey, yeah, I was just seeing you had on a nice outfit today. I want to tell you that how'd your weekend go? Yeah, and we could also not do that thing anymore, and just it may maybe possibly make some people a little bit more uncomfortable. And if you don't want to do it, it's okay. But they fear having those hard conversations. That you see them with more of a desire to be liked than to be respected. Now, I don't mean that when I say respected, I don't mean that they're going around and we're going to rule with an iron fist, okay? So I don't want y'all to think that for a second. What they're doing is that they want you to be their friend. And as the leader, you don't necessarily need to be friends with the people that you're leading. Now, this is not saying that you can't be friendly with them, all right? And it's very natural that as you're working somewhere, that you become friends, because if you're doing it right, you do start to know, hey, who's their spouse, who's their partner, that what are their kids like, where do they go to church, they so on and so forth. And so you start to see these things from a leader. So I don't want to say, hey, the desire to be liked, because we all want to be liked. I want to be liked. I want to know that while you guys are on here, that y'all are like, hey, I like you. And so it's one of the things that, and what do I say? Oh, the top three things that your people are asking you all the time is, do you like me? Like, can you help me? And can I trust you? So they're secretly asking those things. Okay. That under this as well, avoidance, guys, it's kindness. You'll see them choose comfort over standards. You'll see them take the easy route. If I can just pass this off over here, or, I know they weren't supposed to do that, but if I just ignore it, it's going to go away. And so they're going to choose the comfort over that hard decisions. Okay. And so adding avoiding, sorry, not adding, avoiding hard conversations that doesn't protect people. It slowly. And so if you lead people, ask yourself, what conversation are you avoiding right now? And I'll tell you this much, it's one of the things. So last night you had national championship day for football. And whenever Miami scored their first touchdown, we're watching it and my kids are talking about this and that. And I went, no, that guy just avoided doing what he was supposed to do. He avoided taking on a block. He should have scraped over the top. Or when a big play happens, it's usually because in football they avoid somebody. They avoid either making a block, taking on a block, making a tackle. You're hurting your organization as the leader when you avoid the tough conversation. And so really ask yourself, what are you avoiding right now that you need to go do? Second point under what bad leadership actually looks like, inconsistent standards. And so you'll see this where you're like, they pick their favorites. And so, because I used Sarah, she's our imaginary person in here. Sarah is my favorite employee. I don't have an employee named Sarah, but Sarah is my favorite. And so I allow Sarah to do things that I don't allow you to do. And I don't allow you to do it. I don't allow them to do it. But because I like Sarah and she's my favorite, she can do that. She can show up late. She can go on and do whatever. She can leave early, take extended lunch, and I don't say a thing. That you'll see mood-based accountability in this. So today I'm going to hold everybody to the standard. You're going to make your 200 phone calls today. But by the end of the day, I'm in a better mood. And so you guys only made 100 phone calls, so I let it slide. You see that inconsistent standard. And like I said, there's different rules for different people. And so remember, people don't quit jobs. They quit unfairness and they quit bad leaders. They don't quit jobs. And so if you've seen favoritism kill morale at somewhere you work, go ahead, comment in the comments, drop a unfair. And and if you hadn't, they trust me, you'll see it at some point in time. It's going to come around. It's going to come around. Yeah, that as just was put in the comments, it says if others notice that they'll lose respect for you and you lose authority. Crucial, crucial, crucial. Right there with the inconsistent standards. And the other thing that you'll notice is silence at the top. There's no clear expectation. Like no definition of what success is, no real decisions. Lack of leadership is leadership. It just leads people nowhere. And so when you see these things happen, they don't come in and define and set the standards. And I've talked about it before, by you not holding your people accountable, that you're telling them that they're not important, because accountability is one of the greatest forms of love. It's also one of the greatest forms of respect. And so if I want to make sure that I show Sarah that I truly care for Sarah, I'm going to hold Sarah to the same standard that I'm going to hold Dan to. I'm going to do that. And that's what we have to do as leaders. Again, it's not that you're being ugly. It's the standard. You hold them to it. You make them accountable, and you want them, and you do it because you want to see them be successful and you want to see them be better. And so you got to hold them to that standard. All right. And so if winning isn't clearly defined where you work, comment unclear. There, just give us a little like. You don't have to necessarily type in unclear. I know that's a lot of words. I saw Joey and Hunter was on here, so I just hit the like button, Hunter. So I appreciate you, Hunter. I'm just messing with you, my man. And then point number 3. So we talked about the consequences, that what bad leadership actually looks like. And I want to wrap it in that point number 3 with how to fix or overcome bad leadership. Yes, thanks, Levi. I appreciate you liking. I know it would be hard for you to spell unclear as well. So, if you're the leader of your organization, if you are a leader, and remember, leadership is just influence, nothing more, nothing less. If you're the leader, or you're the boss, or you're the manager, stop defending your intent. Okay, the intent doesn't matter. People go off of what you say and what you do. So make sure you don't defend your intent. Defend. And this is why it's so important for you to have those standards defined and outlined, that because it makes it so easy. Um, it was always one of my favorite things. Whenever I was coaching, I had 3 rules. Rule number 1 was always protect the team. Rule number 2 was no whining, no complaining, no excuses. Rule number 3, be early. Those were my team rules. I didn't have, if you show up 2 minutes late, we're going to. I can't remember all those rules. So I made it simple. Whenever you say always protect the team, this is talking about your actions. So everything you do affects the team. So as the leader, always protect your team. And when you become part of a team and when you become a leader, you give up the right to think about yourself. You have to give up your individuality. You're thinking about the rest of the team. So second thing under here for how to fix it, if you are in this as a bad leader, own the impact that you have. That, and think back. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've worked and talked with. That person, that teacher, that principal, that boss messed this up for me forever. And to me, that's such a terrible thing to know that a boss or somebody, because you have that type of impact. And if you don't know the type of impact that you have, so I tell a former player of mine, I was coaching real early in my coaching career. And so we were at halftime of a game, and he had been on the field the entire time. He legitimately had not come off the field. And so we're walking down to the end zone, and I see this player standing over there, and I'm like, what is he doing? And so I go over and I sit down next to him, and he's bawling, crying. This is what he tells me, okay? I don't remember this. He says, and he's telling me this is like 5, 6, 7, 8 years later. He's graduated, and he's telling me this story, so I don't remember this. I can vaguely remember it. And he says he's over there, he's bawling, he's crying. He's like, I just want a break and some water. And he said, you know what you did, coach? Dude, I don't even remember this, but I believe you because it sounds like something I would do. And he said, hey, you reached over, you grabbed a water bottle, you handed it to me, you go, here you go. Now suck it up, Cupcake. We got another half to play. And he said, and you left. And he said, that was my motto for all of my training and everything else was suck it up, Cupcake. We got another half to play. And I really don't remember telling this young man this. But it made a lasting impact that I didn't remember, but he remembered. That's the impact that you get to have as a leader. You own the impact that you make with people. And it's so important that as you do this, okay? And so if your people are confused, if they're checked out, something in your leadership is causing it. You have to change as the leader, okay? And so make sure you raise your standards before you start creating all this motivation. And so if you lead people, and this hits close to home, drop right down below. Own it. Own it. Because you have to own it. Now, on the flip side, if you work for a bad leader, control what you can. And so what do I mean? There's only 2 things that you can control. Your attitude and your actions. Those are the only 2 things that you as a leader can control, okay? That's it. Your attitude and your action. So control what you can control. Now, one that I recommended to as part of one of this, as I told this client, clarify the expectations up front. So make sure you get in writing what they want you to do. Because, like I said, the things that they do, they change their standards based off of their mood or their accountability based off of their mood. And so make sure you get it in writing. That text message, email, it counts. They get it in writing. That way, again, it's to protect you. And that way, whenever they say, hey, you did, and you can go, mm-mm, that this is what you said. I did what you asked. And this is whether you're working with a client, whether you're building a house, they make sure you have it in writing. I was actually talking to one of my friends who owns a very successful construction company, and she was telling me that she's the general manager for it. And she said, I make sure I put everything in writing because I can't tell you how many people tried to say that I didn't do it. And she's like, no, I want to be like, that's your initials and your signature, right? Cool. That's what we're doing. So make sure you get that definition up front. It's very important that you protect yourself in here. And then you got to decide, do I stay? Do I try to influence? Or do I leave? And it's important to know that staying under poor or bad leadership without a plan will slowly shrink who you are. It will slowly diminish what you are. It makes you decrease your value. And this is why I said at the start, it's a slow killer. It's a silent killer. Oftentimes, it's like one of my favorite quotes is, it said, there's two types of people in the world. Those who get it and those who don't get it. And those who don't get that they don't get it. So oftentimes a bad leader doesn't realize they're a bad leader. And so you can either stay, you can influence them, or you can leave. But just know that the longer you stay, if you don't have a plan, it will shrink you as a person. Okay. And so if you're done shrinking, comment grow. And if this has helped you so far, make sure you share it, like it, subscribe so you don't miss out to anything else. Okay. And I want to end with this. Bad leadership isn't always loud. It's quiet. It's the slow erosion of standards, confidence, and belief. And the worst part, most leaders never see the damage they're doing. So if you lead people, you owe them clarity, consistency, and courage. If you follow a leader, you owe yourself growth, not excuses. And if a bad leader goes unchallenged long enough, it doesn't disappear. It just gets repeated. And so if this conversation helped put words to something you felt, share it with one person who needs clarity, not comfort. And remember, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. So keep learning, keep leading, keep connecting, and I'll see you next time. And if you've got any questions you want on this, so I'll open it up for a few minutes. To help answer any questions that you may have or anything that we talked about on this topic, consequences of bad leadership, what bad leadership actually looks like, how to fix or overcome the problem. I appreciate you, Hunter. I don't know if you're still on here or not. I don't know how to tell on TikTok if people are still on and live. It's so far away. No, but going through a couple of different things. So if you've got any questions that will leave it open for a little bit longer. Let me see how to do. Can I look and see who's on? I don't know. It says there's still here. So what you got? What questions you got? I see you, Hunter. Let's see. I got a few more on here as well. Let's flip flop some stuff around so I can see me. Check and see if I missed any questions. All right. Good question. Good question. So, why do high performers often stay longer under bad leaders than low performers? Okay. Um, Usually, I would say it's the other way around. Oftentimes, hard perform or top performers or high performers, and that was what you said. Why do they stay longer? Um, but I think sometimes you'll see people stay around and hang around. And great question. Because they want to honestly believe if they do stay around long enough, it's because they believe in the system itself. They believe in the product itself. Oftentimes, it's not due to what's the word I'm looking for? The leaders. You know, it's that typically it's not because of the leaders. So that's one I would definitely say. Why and I think people ultimately want to see and hope for the best. And I find a lot of times it's some of it too. Why, as when a high performer would stay longer, it's because they lack the self confidence to get out and go do that on their own, if that makes sense. So it's like the I don't know if you've heard the story about the dad who passed, but he left his daughter a car, and so part of it that he said, "Hey, that go and take this car to the car lot and see what you'd get from it." And he takes daughter takes it over there, and they're carrying it on a tow truck. Now they get there and the dealership's like, "Yeah, that will give you $500. That whatever it weighs." They take it, or they take it to the scrap yard. That scrap yard tells them another price that's a little bit lower, and then they take it to a car club. Now the car club looks at it and says, "We'll give you $70,000 for that vehicle right now." And the daughter's like, "What in the world is going on here? Now, this is a hunk of junk." Said, but they start explaining to the daughter, this vehicle, it's this type of car. It's a rare a Nissan Skyline, and this vehicle that does, and we will pay you for that. And so you have to also know that your value is determined by your environment. So just because one place says you're worth $100 doesn't mean there's not somewhere out there that says you're worth $70,000. So it's finding that right environment, finding that right environment. But typically, low performers that or underachievers, so mediocre people, like to stay around that type of environment. Good question. Next one I got on here from Elizabeth. It says, "What's the best way to start holding employees accountable when you haven't been consistent in the past? Oof. Go back to the standard. And this one, so as a young coach, that one was one that I had to do whenever that, because again, I wanted my players to like me. I wanted to feel good about who I was. I wanted them to think that I was good as a person. And so that's why I even, when I run across first year with some of my first or second year players, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I was terrible. But about halfway through my third year was when I realized, look, if the standard is if you're 1 minute late, you run a lap. That's the standard. And by the time, and when my second year came around, coaching and holding to that standard, it became practice. And I had to be adamant about it. It meant I had to discipline players, had to make some of them sit out of games. Oh, you might get fired. But ultimately, it made us a better team. It made us better. And so you just go back to the standard. Whatever the standard is, you go back to it. They get back to the basics. In football, it's blocking and tackling. And one that I'll say back to the basics, that as a follower of Christ, that there's two main big rules. They love God, love people. It's that simple. Go back to it. So make sure you're setting the standard and go back to the standard. Whatever it was, use that. Let's see. Had another one. I saw some other questions start coming in. Why it skipped around. So if you ask it again, just pop it in. I don't know where it went on there. But yeah, good stuff. Good questions. Okay, just answered that. Hey. But yeah, that's a tough one. And I'll go back. So still holding somebody accountable if they hadn't been in the past. Again, you have to make it's you making the decision you're going to do it. And understand it's more it's going to be uncomfortable for you than it is for them. Because ultimately people we naturally gravitate to some sort of hierarchy. It goes all the way back to Genesis, that in the beginning that there was a stand. We had here, you had God, he created everything. And then as you go down, well, civilizations and societies, and for those of y'all that don't know, aren't familiar with, that's how we all got like the nations of Israel. That's how we got the nation. If you go look at the nation of Egypt, it was named after a guy named Egypt. If you go and look at how most of these nations were created, it was named after somebody else. And so we naturally like some sort of hierarchy, that because it shows structure. That's why people like the government. They love them or hate them. The government is necessary, and what the government does in that process is that, or their main contract is to protect their people and provide certain things. And so you give up a little bit of your freedom and independence in there. Just a few more minutes. Go hang on. Does anybody have any other questions? And I appreciate everybody jumping in, asking their questions. They go local TV. They Jaller 107, Elizabeth 007 had good comments from Hunter, Megan. Anybody else got anything before I wrap it up? So welcome, Faye 111. So if you guys don't have anything else, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, guys. But remember, you're not stuck where you are. And if where you are doesn't see value in you, then find people that find value in you. The most and best thing that you can do is to invest in you. As a leadership coach and trainer, I tell everybody that if you aren't that reading and working on yourself every single day, that you cannot, what's the word I'm like, that you have no way to be ready for when the bad times come. So make sure that you are protecting yourself by reading and growing yourself. And so I don't mean reading Harry Potter. I don't mean anything like that. Great books, that the Outsiders, that fine books by guys like John Maxwell, John Gordon. I really started liking Mel Robbins. Alex Hermosi is another good one. I'm trying to think. Grant Cardone. Find stuff that's going to stretch and grow your mind. That because whenever you put that up, that personal growth and development's that important, because if you aren't protecting yourself, nobody else is going to. It's up to you to protect you. And so make sure you're doing that. And so just remember, you want to avoid those consequences, bad leadership, what it actually looks like. And if you are that leader, stop defending your intent and own your impact. So appreciate all y'all hopping on, watching this live. So as I always say, keep leading, keep learning, keep connecting. I'll see you next episode of Clark Connection Podcast.